Hey there, hey, this is Anne-Marie, the Anti-HR HR lady. And today in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how my discovery call process works because I had a commenter ask if I could make a video about this, so I'm making a video about it. So let's talk about it. Before we get started, I'm Anne-Marie, the Anti-HR HR lady and the founder of the AntiHR Consultancy. My business is a consultancy that provides employee-focused HR advice and support. I help employees understand their workplace rights, assert those workplace rights when they think they're being violated, especially if they believe that discrimination is involved. So if that sounds of interest to you, please hit the like button, subscribe, comment constructively, and share it with a friend. Now, let's talk about how my discovery call process works, because I may not be the right person for you to talk to about your problem depending on what your issue happens to be and the context of it. So I want to provide a little bit of guidance in this video around when you should book a discovery call with me and when you should not. Okay, so first I wanted to remind everyone, because I shared some of this stuff, but I didn't get in depth about it in my last video where I reintroduced myself to so many of you who are new to my channel. And one of the things I mentioned in that video where I reintroduced myself is the fact that I have a travel company. It's called Bold Girl Will Travel, and I take small groups of women over 40, Black women over 40, on trips around the world. So sometimes, even when I am doing my HR business, I'm traveling for my other company. So sometimes I might be doing a discovery call from my home in Mexico, which is where I am right now, or I might be doing a discovery call from a country in Africa, or from Turkey, or from the Caribbean, or somewhere like that. Most of the time when I'm doing discovery calls, I'm doing them from my home. Usually if I have engaged clients, I will work with my clients from all over the world, wherever I am. But usually if I'm doing discovery calls, I am at home in Mexico. But sometimes I actually do, in fact, do them from other places. It just depends. But mostly it's when I'm not traveling. But when I have clients, I work with my clients no matter where I am. So sometimes I'm on the other side of the world, and sometimes I'm in Mexico, and sometimes I'm even in the United States. So that's a little bit about that. Because I have such a brutal schedule sometimes, I do take the discovery call process very seriously. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about how it works. So if you want to book a discovery call with me, you would go to my website, the AntiHR whole word -HRlady.com, and you will see a link there to book a discovery call. It is $55 for 20 minutes. And it's funny because when I just started my business, I didn't used to charge for my discovery calls. But then I found that people were not showing up for calls. And so once I instituted a fee, I have since rarely had people not show up for calls. So one of the reasons I instituted a fee for my discovery call was so that people would take it seriously. Because unfortunately, oftentimes when people get things for free, they don't take it as seriously as they would if they were having to make an investment for it. So the $55 is not what it costs for my time. If I were charging you for my time, it would cost a whole lot more. Let's face it, I'm a licensed attorney with over 30 years of HR experience, in addition to having a law degree. It would cost you a lot more than $55 if you were actually paying for my time. But I basically instituted the $55 just to make sure that people show up. And sure enough, once I did that, I rarely have no-shows. I have them once in a while, and I have a policy where you are allowed to rebook once if you miss a call without having to pay the fee twice. But if you miss it again, then you will have to go to the website and book again, right? So that's my policy about no-shows and people not showing up for discovery calls. I usually will stay on the line for about 10 minutes. If someone doesn't show up within the 10-minute, the start of the call, and 10 minutes after that, I end the call and I treat it as a no-show. I do expect people to show up on time. 1 to 2 minutes is not a big deal. So 10 minutes is the window that I usually give for people to get on the call. Okay. So when should you book a discovery call with me? I recommend that if you believe you have an HR issue that you need help with, the sooner you book the discovery call with me, the better. And that goes double if you believe that you're dealing with discrimination in your workplace. Too many times people wait till they're on a PIP, or they wait till they've been given a termination notice before they contact me. That's not the best time to exercise your rights in the way that I help people exercise them. The best time to raise your concerns is before all those things happen. So once you understand what discrimination is, and I explained that in a video that I have here on this channel, you should start documenting what is happening to you, and then you should seek assistance in resolving what is happening to you, right? Whether you decide to book a discovery call with me or someone like me, or you decide to talk to an attorney. But don't wait until there is PIPs and termination, because once they put you on a PIP, they're probably tracking you to terminate you. You can still come to me then, and I often help people who are on PIPs and successfully have helped people on PIPs, but it's better if you come before then, okay? So the minute you know that something is awry and something is not right, and you have documented it, and you may even have complained or raised your concerns with your manager or your HR department, and they have either ignored you or retaliation has started, you should do something. The retaliation could be up to and including a PIP, right? But there are also other things that supervisors can do as well. So the best time to contact me is if you realize that discrimination is happening in your workplace, okay? Then you need to get some assistance, especially if your intention is to see if you can negotiate your way out of the situation and have your employer pay you to leave. Now, discrimination is a very distinct thing. I will link the video where I talk about it. I'm not going to go over it here, but I'm going to link the video where I talk about it in the description of this video, and here as a link in this video itself, because it's very important that you know what discrimination is when you contact me. It's very helpful if you understand what it is and what it isn't, right? Because a lot of times people come to me and they say they believe they are dealing with discrimination and they're not. Or they'll come to me and tell me they're not dealing with discrimination, and in fact they are. So there's a lot of confusion among American workers about what discrimination actually is and what it isn't, right? So it's very important for you to understand that, which is why I make these videos and why I share this content, because it's important for you to know what it is and what it isn't. So once you have established that there is discrimination in your workplace and you need some assistance in dealing with it, book a discovery call with me, okay? Now, please do not send me any files. Please do not send me any documents ahead of the discovery call. You are not my client until you actually are engaged with me as a client, which means there's an agreement that would be signed between us about what is going to happen. A discovery call does not make you my client. Please do not send me things and ask me to read them ahead of time, because I'm not going to. We will discuss whatever your situation is in the discovery call and then determine what the right next steps should be. In some cases, I may even decide that you're not a good candidate to be a client of mine, and I may refer you elsewhere or just give you some advice about what you might do to resolve the situation that you are in. So please do not send me documents or anything like that unless, of course, I ask you for it. I often get questions in my comments from people who are not Black women asking me whether or not they can book a discovery call because they're not a Black woman. Anyone can book a discovery call with me, and I have clients from every possible background there is. Every kind of client I have had, every kind of employee I've had as a client. I don't discriminate against anyone in terms of who I take as my clients, unless I find them to be a problematic person in the discovery call. And that's one of the things I assess on discovery calls is, interacting with the person, their communication style and things like that. But I've never turned anyone down because of their protected characteristics or because they didn't have any protected characteristics. So I've helped employees from every walk of life, and I intend to continue to do that. However, I am always very transparent on this channel that the reason I created this business model is to help Black women, because it was very clear to me from my experience and my observations that Black women are catching hell at work. So needless to say, most of my clients have been Black women, but I've also had clients that are not Black women, that are other people of color, as well as men, as well as women, as well as white women, and everything in between. So, you know, I don't turn anyone down because they're not a black woman, but I'm very transparent that when I'm making my content and when I am, talking on my channel and elsewhere, that's who I have in the back of my mind. And a lot of the issues I raise because I know that they're issues that I need to raise because we are experiencing it in the workplace. And I want it to be top of mind and for us to know that there are options. So I wanted to make sure I address that because I get that question, not all the time, but it has come up in my comments a couple of times. So I want to make sure that I answered that question. It's very clear to me that as I've said in many videos, that white supremacy and hypercapitalism in the United States is harming everybody. It's threatening our democracy as a nation, and it's harming all employees. The decisions that have just come out of the Supreme Court are not just going to hurt black people. They may hurt us a lot more and more acutely than other groups, right? But they're going to hurt everyone, right? And so these things are going to come up in the context of the workplace. I'm pretty sure, just based on the calls that I do, that people are experiencing an uptick in open racism in their workplaces. Racism has always been a part of American society, therefore it has always been a part of the workplace. But in the last couple of years, I would honestly say since 2016, there has been a lot more blatant racism against people of color and black people in the workplaces in my lifetime than what I had seen before that. So, that's my personal observation, and it definitely has been confirmed by the discovery calls that I do with people who are interested in talking to me about issues that they're dealing with at work. So there's definitely an uptick. So if you feel like you're noticing more and you're seeing more things, it's because it actually seems to be happening, that what is manifesting in other parts of our society are showing up in workplaces across the country. I wanted to make sure on this call that I talked about exactly what discovery calls are for from my perspective. So as I've explained before, I have an HR consulting business, and through that business, I provide support and advice to employees who come to me who either want to deal with a difficult HR situation or they want help with dealing with discrimination in their workplace, and they specifically want to leverage the discriminatory treatment in their workplace to cash out of it, i.e. have their employer pay them to leave the environment. Now, when I do discovery calls, what I am doing is assessing a problem. It is not an advice session. While I do give advice during those calls, that's not the purpose of the call. And I provide an intake form, and I say this up front at the top of the intake form, but I want to say it now as well because I don't think people always seem to read everything that they sign, which is a really bad thing if you're an employee. But people say yes and they check a box and they say yes, they understand, but then they come on the call and treat it as if it's a pick my brain session, and that's not what my calls are for. If you have an issue and you want to resolve it on your own and you don't want to pay me or anyone else to do it, don't waste your time booking a discovery call with me, because your issue is not going to be resolved on that call. And I have had a lot of people recently book discovery calls with me where it's very clear to me that they came on the call expecting that they were going to pay $55 for 20 minutes and that I was going to solve all their HR problems in 20 minutes. And that's not what the calls are for. They are first and foremost for me to understand what the problem is that you have and determine whether I think if I worked with you on a one-to-one basis, I could help you resolve the problem, right? And then if I determine based on what we discussed that I can, then I will send you something in writing that lays out what that would look like if we were working one-to-one together and what it would cost. Because as I said in my previous video, I don't work for free. No one should, right? And so I'm a single, entrepreneur, and I run 2 businesses, and, I do not expect anyone that provides services to me to do it for free, and I don't think anyone that works with me should expect me to do it for free. Do people get free advice from me on these calls? Absolutely. Pretty much every single call, I provide some type of information to people to help them at least get on the path to addressing the issue that they're dealing with in their workplace. But the purpose of the calls are for me to assess the situation and determine whether or not we are a match for engagement. And then the person on the call gets to decide whether they want to proceed with that or whether they want to do something else, right? And that's perfectly fine. But I want to make sure that I'm very transparent about the fact that the calls, from my perspective, are first and foremost assessment calls. And I try to make that clear, but because I've had such an uptick in discovery calls being booked, I want to make sure that I say that in this video as well, so that people are not booking calls with the expectation that it's a 20-minute advice session, because that's not what it is. If you have a problem that you want to talk to me for an hour, for example, or you want to spend 30 minutes talking to me about a problem that you're having, you can definitely contact me and through my website, and I will let you know what it will cost in terms of my time if you just want to sit down and have a conversation with me where you want me to listen to a problem that you have and tell you what to do. Now, understand that if you do that, it's probably going to cost you more than if you chose to sign up as a one-to-one engagement, because what my hourly rates come up to are often more than what it would come up to if you bought the same amount of time. Like if somebody wanted 2 hours of my time, for example, to figure out a problem, it would cost them less if they signed up for an engagement than if they just bought my time, because my hourly rate is higher than what it would cost for them to do, say, 3 or 4 weeks of work with me. So that's something to be aware of. But if that's something you wanted to do, you could contact me and ask to set something like that up, right? But do not, or you could book a discovery call and even inquire about that. But don't think that any serious HR issue that you have at work is not going to be resolved in a 20-minute call. Even if I were using those calls for that purpose, it would not be an effective way to deal with an HR issue, most of the HR issues, because there are a lot of questions that have to be asked and answered. There's a lot of documentation that I often have to have people collect, because most people come to me have very little to no documentation. And even when they have documentation, it's not effectively constructed. It's one of the reasons why I created the journal that I sell on my website, because it was very obvious to me that employees don't really know how to effectively document their workplace. And documentation is the most important thing when you're trying to prove discrimination in your workplace. So again, that's another reason why 20 minutes is not a amount of time enough to resolve any serious issue that you have in your HR, in your workplace, especially if HR is involved in it. So really quickly, here are the here are the situations, generally speaking, where I would say you should book a discovery call with me. If you believe that you are being discriminated against and you've documented it, and now you want to know how to effectively use what you have to get especially to exit your workplace, you should contact me. If you are suffering in a workplace that is toxic, hostile, there's bullying, there's harassment, but you're not quite sure whether you can connect the dots to discrimination, or you think it might be discrimination, but you're not sure, book a discovery call and we can talk through at least what is going on preliminary in your workplace. And I can tell you on the call whether or not I think you have enough to prove discrimination. The third thing is, you may have a non-discrimination issue. Something has nothing to do with discrimination and you just want advice about it. For example, in my last video I mentioned, I have helped people, I've had people come to me and say, I'd like to work with you to help me negotiate a job offer I received, right? And I worked with a person who came to me for that purpose, and I ended up helping her get, I think it was between $50,000 to $60,000 more than what she was initially. Actually, she got close to 100 over what she wanted, and then I helped her counter. So she ended up netting close to $100,000 more a year than what she had initially wanted, because she lowballed herself, as Black women often do. But then I also advised her about how to counter what they offered her, so she ended up getting even more. So she got close to 100,000 more than what she initially had even wanted. I recently had someone come to me and ask me how to construct, like how to figure out what they should set their rate at for a job that was talking to them about working on a consulting basis. And so I gave the person advice about that. I've had people come to me and ask me for advice about what kind of professional development they should pursue in their workplace. And I've given them advice about that. So I do all of those kinds of things. Most people who come to me because they're having issues around discrimination or other wrongdoing or problematic behavior at work. But I also help people with anything related to HR that an employee might need advice about. I will help you. If you book a discovery call, we will determine then what the issue is, what kind of support you need, and we will figure that out. And I'm always happy to help. I actually enjoy doing, just helping people solve issues in their workplace that has nothing to do necessarily with bad behavior by HR or something like that. I really enjoy doing working with the person who came to me about negotiating the offer for a job that they were, gonna be taking. I really enjoyed doing that, and the person learned a lot so that the next time she's looking for a job, she will know how to approach it and how to think about it. And so a lot of things that I try to teach people are things that I hope that they will use over and over again. And so once they use my services, they learn a skill, they learn a way of thinking about things that they can use the next time there's a problem or the next time there's an issue. So if you're a person who has an issue, even if it's a non-discrimination issue, but you need someone who understands HR and has a lot of HR experience to help you think it through, I'm happy to talk to you about that as well, so you can book a discovery call for that. Now, let's talk about who shouldn't book a discovery call with me. So if you're just looking to pick my brain and see how much information you can get for free in 20 minutes, don't book a discovery call for me. I think I've already said that, but I'm going to say it again. Second, if you have an attorney, you are in the midst of a legal issue between you and your employer, and you have an attorney that you're working with, please don't book a discovery call with me to ask me whether I think your attorney is giving you good advice or whether you should listen to your attorney. If you have an attorney, you're paying for their knowledge and expertise, do what they tell you to do. I do not second guess other attorneys. I am also a licensed attorney, and I think it's unprofessional and borderline unethical for me to do that, and for me to comment on your attorney's strategies and tactics when I don't even know as much about your situation as they do. And in 20 minutes, I can't possibly know, right? So please don't book a discovery call with me to use it as a way to second guess your attorney. I'm not going to do it. I've had people do it. I'm not going to do it, right? The most I will do is give you some advice about how to ask questions of your attorney to get the answers that you're trying to get. But I'm not going to give you any assessment of whether I think your attorney is right, whether I think they're wrong, whether I think their approach is right, or any of those kinds of things. I think it's inappropriate. So if that's the purpose of booking the discovery call, please don't do it. Save your $55, okay? The third thing is, if you have already been terminated from your job, please do not book a discovery call with me. I'm going to say that again. If you have already been terminated from your job, please do not book a discovery call with me. Even though I am an attorney, I am not doing the work that I do as an attorney. If I was doing that, I would probably charge even more for my time than I do. I created my business model and the consultancy that I manage and run based on my almost 30 years, I guess, of human resources management experience, right? As well as based on my experience as being an employee, but primarily based on my experience running HR for 20 plus years, right? So while my understanding and knowledge of the law informs the work that I do, it's not the basis of the work that I do. And the information that I share is really designed to help employees understand how to interact with HR and how to get what they need, especially when discrimination is happening from HR. So I do not provide legal advice. The advice that I give you and the assessments that I give you are not in the context of preparing you for litigation or preparing you to go to court, and it's not legal advice. So if you want legal advice, go talk to an attorney. If you want to sue your employer, Go talk to an attorney. That's literally what their jobs are. And their approach to these issues are very different than mine because I'm not preparing you for litigation. I'm not preparing to take your situation into court. What I'm trying to do is help you avoid all of that and just cash out of the situation. It's a completely different approach. I don't think either approach is wrong. But if what you desire is to sue them, and some people just want to sue the pants off their employer, they're pissed, they're unhappy about how they were treated, right? Especially when they've already been fired, then you should consult an attorney in your state and local, I would say at least in the county where you live, and get advice about whether or not they think that you have enough to take an issue into the courthouse, right? But if you have been fired already, I am not going to be able to help you because the tactics and the strategies that I implement require that the person still be employed at their employer, right? And they will not work if you are not still employed. So if you have been terminated already, you should talk to an attorney about what you should do next, whether that's filing an EEOC. If you have a discrimination issue that you want to take into the courthouse, you're going to have to file an EEOC complaint because the EEOC has to issue what they call a right to sue letter, right? Now, you can do that through your attorney or you could do it yourself. But you will have to get a right to sue letter from the EEOC in order to file a workplace discrimination claim in court. So an attorney can give you advice about how to do that in the state or jurisdiction that you live in. I'm not going to do that because that's not part of what I do. So the third thing, as I said, is if you have already been terminated from your job, you should talk to an attorney about your situation, right? Do not book a discovery call with me to talk to me about what you should do because what I just said is literally what I'm going to tell you. So I don't want you to spend your $55 to tell me, oh, well, I've already been terminated and now I want to know what I can do. I'm going to tell you you need to talk to a lawyer, right? The statutes of limitations for employment issues are often shorter than definitely criminal and other civil actions. So that's one of the things you also want to make sure you understand and make sure you talk to talk to an attorney about what the statute of limitations is for the kind of claim that you want to raise, right? But don't book a discovery call with me to discuss those things. It's not going to be a good use of your time or my time. So if you have already been terminated from your employer, I suggest that you consult an attorney about what your steps should be if you want to raise a wrongful termination claim on the basis of discrimination or FMLA violations or American with Disability Act violations. There's so many laws that employers are routinely breaking. It's not just discrimination. There's so many. That's one of the reasons I created the ebook I just put out around providing a roadmap for employees to understand their workplace rights and to understand some of the key laws on the books currently to protect their workplace rights, because employers are just out here doing all kinds of stuff because they figure y'all don't know. And that's the truth. They're up here putting people on PIPs when they come back from FMLA, which is a violation of FMLA law. If you got to prove that the person did something wrong, and how did the person do something wrong? They just came back from FMLA. So there's a good likelihood that they are engaging in retaliation against you for taking the FMLA. And a lot of employers are doing this, right? So if you feel like your employer fired you because when you got back from FMLA and you think it was because you took FMLA, that's something you should talk to a lawyer about. If you think that you asked your employer for reasonable accommodation for a disability that you had in your workplace and you made it clear that you were asking for a reasonable accommodation based on the requirements of the Americans with Disability Act, and they put you on a PIP and fired you, you may need to talk to an attorney about that too. So it's not just discrimination. There's several areas of law where employers are just running amok, especially right now. So if you feel that you have been wrongfully terminated, if you've already been fired from a job and you feel it was wrongful and in violation of the law, I highly recommend that you speak to an attorney, but don't book a discovery call with me. So I know and understand that everyone cannot afford to work with me one-on-one, right? My time costs what it costs, and I know everyone cannot afford to work one-on-one with me. Because of that, I have created ebooks, and I'm continuing to work on some others. I have a master course where I literally teach employees how to ask for an exit from a discriminatory work environment with cash and actually get it. That's literally the name of the course. And I teach people literally what I teach my one-to-one clients for much more, because they're actually paying for my actual time. I have put together an online master course that you can go and access and get the same information along with templates. I provide templates for how to write communications. I provide a spreadsheet to help people track and create a timeline of the discrimination in their workplace, a timeline of events. So it's a very complete master course, and I've had many people successfully use it to cash out of discriminatory work environments. So if you don't feel that you can afford to work with me one-to-one, that's another option. I'm also currently working on putting some other master courses together. It is time consuming, and I do travel, so it's taking a little bit longer than I would like, but I'm working on putting a master course together now about teaching people how to negotiate a separation agreement. Because a lot of times, even if your employer hands you a separation agreement, if they have engaged in wrongdoing and violated the law, you need to counter that separation agreement offer. And so what I'm going to do is put a little course together to teach people how to do that, so that they are not just taking whatever is offered to them, that they know how to make an argument about why they should be paid more and how to counter the offer that they are given. So I'm working on that right now. And I'm also working on a master course for Black women who are in senior management, because there are specific issues that they deal with that have some complexities that aren't really completely addressed in my current master course. So I'm putting together a training, and I was hoping to get it done in August, but it may end up being pushed into the fall. But I'm putting together a training for that. It's going to be called Get Out, because y'all really do need to get out of these workplaces. But I am going to put together a roadmap for Black women in senior management to teach them how to navigate those environments a little bit better, how to deal with some of the things that they deal with in those workplaces, and how to know when the hell to get the hell out, when to throw the towel in, and how to go about cashing out of those work environments specifically, and how to go about doing that in a way that does not compromise them professionally. So those are two master courses that I'm working on, but the separation agreement one will come out first, and then the next one will come out after that. But if you feel like working one-to-one with me is not a financially viable option for you, there are some other options that you can get from my website. There's a documentation journal. There's the roadmap that educates you about your workplace rights. I have a separation agreement checklist that basically just kind of walks people through the major aspects of a separation agreement, like things that they will see in a separation agreement. And I just explain what those things are. Like, what are you going to see if somebody gives you a separation agreement? And what do some of these clauses that you will see in a separation agreement really mean in regular English? And it's not a replacement for getting a review from an attorney, but it's just to help people have a better understanding of what some of these things are and what they mean. Because I really recognize that employees are at a deficit around a lot of these things, and people are being given agreements to sign, and they read it, but they don't really understand sometimes the implications of some of these things, right? So that separation agreement checklist is also already on my website, along with the documentation journal, which is a downloadable journal that you can use to document issues in your workplace. I always tell people you should be documenting your workplace from the first day. Don't wait till something goes wrong. Start from the first day of employment. And the documentation journal also, includes information about how to understand certain things that happen, how to recognize gaslighting, how to recognize microaggressions, right? And how to document those things. So it's another tool that's very useful. It's on my website. So I put all those things there because I realize everyone can't work one-to-one with me, but I still want to make sure people have access to tools that will help them and educate them about their workplaces and their workplace rights, especially in the United States. Okay, so I hope that this information I've shared has been helpful and given you some insight into how my discovery call process works, so that before you book one, you kind of understand who it's for, who it's not for, when you should book one, when you shouldn't book one. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll answer them. I would really appreciate it if you would pause and take a moment and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if this video was helpful to you. If there are other types of content that you think would be useful and helpful for me to create for this channel, please feel free to drop that in the comment. I can't promise that I will address every single one of them, but I will try to address ones that I think will be most beneficial to the most number of people. My comment section, I don't give advice in my comment section, but I will answer short questions. And if there are topics that you'd like me to talk about, I'm always happy to create content around them. If they're not just specific to you, but are specific to a problem that you might be facing at work, that other people might be facing as well, then I'm always happy to create content about that. So I hope this video was helpful. As always, I'm Anne Marie, the Anti-HR HR lady, reminding you that HR is not your enemy, but they're definitely not your friend. But I am. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Bye.